Egyptian, meaning he whom Ra has given the priest of On as a wife. G 41. 45. Thereafter Joseph toured the land of Egypt and prepared to administer affairs of state, later storing great quantities of foodstuffs during the years of plenty. Before the famine arrived, his wife Asenath bore him 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. G 41. 46-52. Half-brothers come to buy food. Then the famine came. Since it extended far beyond Egypt's borders, people from surrounding lands came to buy food from Joseph. Eventually even his 10 half-brothers arrived and bowed low to him, thus partially fulfilling Joseph's 2 previous dreams. G 41. 53. 42. 7 However, they did not recognize him, dressed as he was in royal attire and speaking to them through an interpreter. G 42. 8. 23 Feigning not to know them, Joseph accused them of being spies, upon which charge they asserted that they were 10 brothers, that they had left behind at home their father and their younger brother, and that another brother was no more. But Joseph insisted that they were spies and put them in custody. On the 3rd day he said to them, "Do this and keep alive. I fear the true God. If you are upright, let one of your brothers be kept bound in your house of custody, apparently the one in which all 10 had been in custody, but the rest of you go, take cereals for the famine in your houses. Then you will bring your youngest brother to me, that your words may be found trustworthy. And you will not die." G 42. 9-20. In view of these developments, Joseph's half-brothers began to sense divine retribution on them for having sold him into slavery years earlier. In front of their brother, whom they still did not recognize, they discussed their guilt. On overhearing their words reflecting repentance, Joseph was so emotionally overcome that he had to leave their presence and weep. On returning, he had Simeon bound until such time as they would come back with their youngest brother. G 42. 21-24. Half-brothers come with Benjamin. When Joseph's 9 half-brothers told Jacob what had happened in Egypt, and when it was discovered that the money of all of them was back in their sacks, all became very much afraid, and their father gave expression to grief. Only the severity of the famine, coupled with Judah's assurance for the safe return of Benjamin, moved Jacob to allow his youngest son grain harvesting and storing as depicted in an Egyptian tomb. Genesis refers to abundant grain harvest in Egypt. Joseph 109 to accompany the others back to Egypt. G 42. 29. 43. 14. Upon arriving there, they were reunited with Simeon, and much to their surprise, all were invited to have dinner with the food administrator. When Joseph came they presented him with a gift, prostrated themselves to him, and after answering his inquiries concerning their father, again bowed down to him. On seeing his full brother Benjamin, Joseph was so aroused emotionally that he left their presence and gave way to tears. After that he was able to control his feelings and had a new meal served. The 11 brothers were seated at their own table according to age, and Benjamin was given portions 5 times greater than the others. Likely Joseph did this to test his brothers as to any hidden jealousies. But they gave no evidence of such. G 43. 15-34. As on the previous visit, Joseph had each one's money put back in his bag. G 42. 25, and additionally he had his silver cup placed in Benjamin's bag. After they had got underway, he had them overtaken and charged with stealing his silver cup. Perhaps to impress upon them its great value to him and the serious nature of their supposed crime, the man over Joseph's house was to say to them, "Is not this the thing that my master drinks from and by means of which he expertly reads omens?" G 44. 1-5 Of course, since all of this was part of a ruse, there is no basis for believing that Joseph actually used the silver cup to read omens. Apparently Joseph wanted to represent himself as an administrator of a land to which true worship was foreign. Great must have been the consternation of his brothers when the cup was found in Benjamin's bag. With garments ripped apart, they returned to Joseph's house and bowed before him. Joseph told them that all except Benjamin were free to go. But this they did not want to do, showing that the envious spirit that had moved them about 22 years earlier to sell their brother was gone. Judah eloquently pleaded their case, offering to take Benjamin's place, lest their father die from grief, because of Benjamin's failure to return. GE 44. 6-34. Joseph reveals his identity. Joseph was so affected by Judah's plea that he could no longer contain himself. After requesting all strangers to leave, he identified himself to his brothers. Although greatly mistreated by them formerly, he harbored no animosity. Said he, "Now do not feel hurt and do not be angry with yourselves because you sold me here. Because for the preservation of life God has sent me ahead of you. For this is the second year of the famine in the midst of the earth, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be no plowing time or harvest. Consequently God sent me ahead of you in order to place a remnant for you men in the earth and to keep you alive by a great escape. So now it was not you who sent me here, but it was the true God." GE 45. 1-8 Joseph's forgiveness was genuine, for he wept over and kissed all his brothers. GE 45. 14-15. Thereafter Joseph, according to Pharaoh's orders, provided wagons for his brothers so that they might bring Jacob and his entire household to Egypt. Additionally he gave them presents and provisions for the journey. And, in parting, he encouraged them not to get exasperated at one another on the way. GE 45. 16-24. Joseph's father comes to Egypt. Jacob at first could not believe that his son Joseph was still alive. But, when finally convinced, 130-year-old Jacob exclaimed, "Ah, let me go and see him before I die." Later, at Beersheba while on the way to Egypt with his entire household, Jacob, in vision, received divine approval for the move and was also told, "Joseph will lay his hand upon your eyes." So Joseph was to be the one to close Jacob's eyes after his death. Since the firstborn customarily did this, Jehovah thereby reveals that Joseph was to receive the right as firstborn. GE 45. 25. 46. 4. Having been advised of his father's otextoi acute muritra longo, Joseph for 110 cities was a temporary measure. Since the Egyptians had to return to their fields to sow seed, logically they would again dwell in their former houses. Once they were again enjoying a harvest from the land, the Egyptians, according to Joseph's decree, were required to give a fifth of their produce to Pharaoh for using the land. The priests, however, were exempted. GE 47. 13-26. Jacob blesses Joseph's sons. About 12 years after the famine ended, Joseph brought his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, before Jacob. It was then that Jacob indicated that the right of firstborn was to be Joseph's, Ephraim and Manasseh being viewed as equals of Jacob's direct sons. So from Joseph were to spring 2 distinct tribes, with 2 separate tribal inheritances. Though it displeased Joseph, Jacob, in blessing Ephraim and Manasseh, kept his right hand placed on the younger, Ephraim. By giving the preference to Ephraim, he prophetically indicated that the younger would become the greater. GE 47. 28, 29. 48. 1-22. See also to 21. 17. Jos 14. 4. 1ch5. 1. Jacob blesses Joseph and other sons. Later, Jacob, on his deathbed, called all his sons to him and blessed them individually. He likened Joseph to the offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree. That fruit-bearing tree was the patriarch Jacob himself, and Joseph became one of the prominent branches. GE 49. 22 Though harassed by archers and an object of animosity, Joseph's bow was dwelling in a permanent place, and the strength of his hands was supple. GE 49. 23, 24 This could have been said of Joseph personally. His half-brothers harbored animosity and figuratively shot at him to destroy him. Yet Joseph repaid them with mercy and loving kindness, these qualities being like arrows that killed their animosity. The enemy archers did not succeed in killing Joseph nor in weakening his devotion to righteousness and brotherly affection. Prophetically, though, Jacob's words could apply to the tribes that were to spring from Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and their future battles. Compared to 33. 13, 17. JG 1. 23-25, 35. It is of interest that the tribe of Ephraim produced Joshua, Moses' successor and the leader of the fight against the Canaanites. New 13. 8, 16. Jos 1. 1-6 Another descendant of Joseph, Gideon of the tribe of Manasseh, with the help of Jehovah, defeated the Midianites. JG 6. 13-15. 8. 22 And Jephthah, evidently also of the tribe of Manasseh, subdued the Ammonites. JG 11. 1, 32, 33. Compare JG 12. 4. New 26. 29. Other aspects of Jacob's prophetic blessing also find a parallel in Joseph's experiences. When Joseph, instead of taking vengeance, made provision for the entire household of Jacob, or Israel, he was as a shepherd and a stone of support to Israel. Since Jehovah had guided Moses so that he could serve in this capacity, Joseph had come from the hands of the powerful one of Jacob. Being from God, Joseph had Jehovah's help. He was with the Almighty in that he was on Jehovah's side and therefore was a recipient of his blessing. G 49. 24, 25. The blessing of Jehovah also was to be experienced by the tribes to descend from Joseph through Ephraim and Manasseh. Said Jacob, "Here the Almighty will bless you with the blessings of the heavens above, with the blessings of the watery deep lying down below, with the blessings of the breasts and womb." G 49. 25 This assured Joseph's descendants of needed water supplies from heaven and from underground, as well as a large population. Compared to 33. 13-16. Jos 17. 14-18. The blessings that Jacob pronounced upon his beloved son Joseph were to be like an ornament to the two tribes to spring from Joseph. These blessings were to be an ornament superior to